Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Civic Platform. We have reached in this episode the second part of the community services, parks, and protection are all priorities for the City of Winnipeg Part 2. To complete the Winnipeg Hall session on protection, community services, and parks, let's get started.
Back into our regular agenda items. Number 6, Winnipeg 1 Million Tree Challenge Annual Report. There he is, Mr. Domke.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, as well as other councillors. I'm happy to bring this report forward on the Winnipeg 1 Million Tree Challenge. It's an annual report that we're bringing forward. It reports that in 2021 we planted over 20,000 trees in the Winnipeg 1 Million Tree report. Of that, combined over the two years since its inception, it's 29,000 trees altogether. In 2022, we're also expecting another 20,000 trees to be planted in this particular program that we're offering. The report also talks a little bit about Trees Winnipeg and their roles and responsibilities towards this program. And initially, we had thought that they would need some upfront funding to establish and hire a consultant to get the Winnipeg 1 Million Tree website going, which is wonderful. It's really good if you haven't had a look at it. And they've done that. So we're proposing now to consider a new agreement of $70,000 in 2023 to get this done. We're also hoping that the group is moving towards self-sufficiency at the end of the day. As we get more and more into this program, hopefully they're able to find some other grants, sources of funding to keep their organization up and running. The final point that I'd like to make is that we also have an application on this 2 billion tree program, and it's looking with Natural Resource Canada. It's looking quite favorable at this time that the city is going to be considered with this. Of course, we're going back and forth with the Natural Resource Canada on a number of questions of clarification right now. But certainly, if that program does develop into some real trees in the ground, there's going to be a significantly greater number of trees that are planted under this program. So the recommendation at the end of the day is that a grant be considered for Trees Winnipeg for $70,000, and that it be referred to the 23 budget process, and that's really the net outcome of this thing, that grant be considered next year in this program. So with regards to that, that's my presentation. And if the chair agrees, I will open up to questions.
Any questions, council?
I have, if Councillor Nason does.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Or do you? Okay. So we're giving him half funding. I think it's half. I think it was 140,000 a year we gave from 2020 to 22. But the report is the end of the program, although we're going to fund them to do, it sounds like, education. But so first question is, for Trees Winnipeg to become sustainable, I'd imagine they actually applied to the Billion Tree fund as well to promote trees in Winnipeg?
That's a good question. They have not at this point in time, but there's other intakes coming forward, and they intend to apply at the next intake period.
Okay, so then the next question, in our efforts in the forestry master plan that will come to council after its final public consultation. When we put our application in, there was a city ourselves component as well as a community neighborhood component. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, we had a twofold application looking at working with community groups towards them doing some planting and getting them to do some work towards that ends, as well as some of the direct city work on boulevards and in parks.
So the intention there was for the forestry branch itself or parks and open spaces to work directly with the community groups, or was it the idea that we might work with Trees Winnipeg?
In the application, we would be working directly with these community groups on the planting.
There's a lot of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we have a dozen groups that have provided letters of support towards this, the 2 billion tree program. So there's a lot of interest, and we expect if we get the funding, there'll be much more interest.
Yeah, like I just was at the AGM for the Point Douglas Residents Committee, and they want trees and they want them now on our public boulevards, and but I always concerned about it is the right place, the right tree in the right place. So there's a lot of people really gung ho. And in this report, Telpay threw in 10 grand or whatever amount of money. They had 10,000 trees last year. They've got 6,000 trees this year. Those ones are saplings.
Bare root.
Or what? Sorry?
Bare root.
Bare root sapling, yeah. They're only like a year or two. Yeah. Anyway, and I've got a couple in my private yard and they're doing quite well. But what I'm trying to get at is if Trees Winnipeg continues, and I think this was part of the Trees Winnipeg initiative that they got money, and actually Telpay is basically delivering the program themselves pretty well. My question really is what is the possibility of planting those bare root trees? I guess, and I've been told that it's okay to plant them on our thing, on our boulevards, but in the right place at the right time. But there's no way at this point we're going to be able to support, say, the 6,000 trees that are being given out this year. Once they're planted.
So we do target the different tree sizes for different applications across the city where they go. And right now, and in the proposed program, the bare root stock is typically planted in park areas, public areas and parks where there's not a lot of people or damage. If you're to plant a small sapling 12 inches large on your boulevard, there is very little
one winter.
Yeah, very little probability that it would that it would survive. So we are targeting larger trees to be planted on boulevards and medium and large size in parks.
Okay, all right. So I've been asked to help out, so I just wanted the clarification. Anyway, so for Trees Winnipeg, that support is there. They're looking for their own sustainability, and I guess would you forestry branch? I think you already have. You'll be working with what's that other tree group? Trees Please. Or is your forestry branch and you guys working with Trees Please?
Yeah, they've been very involved in review of the the draft urban forest strategy, Trees Please. So there's regular communication going on between them and us.
Okay, that's all the questions I have at this moment.
Okay, Councillor Nason.
I actually don't have it.
Thank you for your presentation, Dave. Just the only questions that I have, planting trees is one strategy, but it's also about the maintenance of others so that they don't fall to disease or what happened in 2019 with that freak snowstorm that we had in early October. Is there a strategy or an improved strategy in terms of dealing with some of the maintenance or trimming of our trees and how that's addressed potentially through the Million Tree Challenge?
Yeah, really, the Million Tree Challenge is just for net new trees to be planted, not for ones that are already existing or removed on boulevards and in parks. So what that means is that the urban forest strategy actually deals directly with the resources, or will deal with directly with the resources that we need to maintain existing boulevard and park trees and replant those trees. So look, that's already in the draft plan. That's out for, well, it's past public engagement now, but it's available on our website if you would like to refer to that.
Sorry. Mr. Chair, I will move this report recommendation. It goes to EPC because it's a budgetary thing.
Yeah, 70,000 for Trees Winnipeg.
Yeah, so I'll move the report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Domke. Item 7, Community Services Department operational opportunities to improve service resulting from experiences in COVID.
One notification.
Who's providing that?
This is just the written report. Did we not receive, I think we received from the various departments that report to us, and this is just the written report. Is that right?
Okay, yeah. So Cindy Fernandes is not speaking to this, or it's just a review of the report?
It's the written report that was requested, I believe. We did this at Water and Waste yesterday with that one. I mean, it's already been reported. It's there in writing for people to see.
Okay, so
I would just move to receive it as information.
Cindy, did you want to respond to this or add any additional information?
No, not really. I did provide a verbal update at the last Standing Policy Committee meeting, and then it was requested by yourselves that it be provided in writing. So following that, then I put that in a written report and submitted it. So there isn't any new information as compared to what I did provide as a verbal update last meeting.
Okay, so we do have a motion to
So,
accept it.
yeah,
as
and
information.
just in moving it though, I would just like to say, I'd like to thank Ms. Fernandes and all of our public service for working through the difficulties and coming up with various methods. Some of it was very difficult. So thank you, Ms. Fernandes, in moving this report. It's on the record for all Winnipeggers to see if they go, and that's moving it to receive this information.
I did have a question for
Well, you
Ms.
did?
Fernandes.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Online. Just on the staffing, we, from an availability of services, I understand some waiting pools have been delayed because we're having trouble recruiting staff to work them, lifeguard shortages. These are all going to have impact on some of the community services pools, access times. Libraries could be the same as well. What sort of action plan are we undertaking to try to get people back to work and working in the public service in these areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. We certainly have been concerned and have been working for quite some time to recruit for our summer season, and also recruitment and retention of our existing staff since we've been restoring our services. So certainly what we're experiencing right now, and I don't think community services is unique in this perspective, because I think there's other departments and other organizations across the city are having difficulty recruiting people. So for our seasonal hires, and primarily we do a lot of recreation technician Bs. that we recruit for our wading pools. We have kept that bulletin open, right? I think it's still open because we are still short about 40 to 50 RecTech Bs in order to be able to open all of our wading pools at the hours that we would like to. So we've had a job fair, we've had targeted recruitments, we have kept that bulletin open, we have been using our community connections with various organizations to try and recruit some people to work over the summer, and we will continue to do that. With regards to our aquatic instructors and lifeguards, as you know, this isn't just have a first aid and CPR. They need many levels and leadership courses that we haven't been able to offer over the last couple of years. So we are doing our best to try and recruit. We've increased our numbers. We do think that we've got about 30. We are short about 50 right now for our lifeguards and instructors, which definitely impacts our Learn to Swim program and the hours that we can offer for indoors and outdoor pools. But certainly we want to focus, as we do most years, to make sure that we've got our summer and outdoor season. So we are focusing a lot more of our efforts when we do have reduced levels of staff, to ensure we have our outdoor pools as open as much as possible. Pardon me. So we are continuing to do recruitments for lifeguards, and we've actually we're going to be doing this pilot program with the help of Indigenous Relations Division to have a Indigenous recruitment, so that we can try and recruit staff and get them trained on a quicker scale in order to become lifeguards. So we're starting that in the fall, and that's going to be, I think, about 12 or 16 that we're hopefully going to be able to fast track into our instructor and lifeguard series. So hopefully that answers your question.
Partially, you just opened up a new one.
Okay.
So right now, the summer activities, struggling for staff, even though schools, university level, typically, is it accurate to say that a lot of the summer positions are filled by university students?
Some of them are.
Okay.
Some of them are, and some of them are high school students. I mean, our RecTech Bs, our requirement is 16 years of age, and CPR level C, and first aid. So, it's not just university, but you know what? We're trying to figure out what are the root causes as to why we're struggling with our recruitment. Because, like I said, we're not the only ones that are struggling to get staff. So part of it could be pay, part of it could be the short season, part of it could be lack of flexibility. Like when we recruit staff and we have our summer season that is only 8 weeks long, we do expect the staff to be there every day for that 8 weeks. There's a lot of jobs available for young people, and do they want to work for the city, or do they want to work at Earl's on Main, getting a couple $100 a day in tips? There's various reasons why somebody might want to work for the city as compared to other opportunities that are out there.
Okay. So will our fall leisure programs be scaled back as a result of limited staffing?
Well, the leisure guide is we have independent contractors, right? Contract leaders that run a lot of our leisure guide programs. So we have that runs our leisure guide programs, but our Learn to Swim is done with our city staff. So it's a combination, right? And our Learn to Skate is also done with city staff and some contract leaders. So, we're being optimistic that we will be able to have a fall leisure guide similar to pre-pandemic levels, but it will certainly be subject to our staffing levels at that time.
So again, I'm being a little ward centric on the perspective of Transcona Pool hasn't been offering swimming lessons. I'm hearing from people who are marginalized, lower income brackets that are saying it's difficult for me to get to other places in the city to take the lessons. Why can't we have them in our backyard? And, you know, staffing is a challenge. Perhaps the availability of hours, I don't know, but, you know, how can we reassure that some areas of the city that have had swimming lessons in the past are seeing coming out of COVID, not having that they can come back?
Yeah, Councillor Nason, it is truly as a result of our staffing levels. So, we get more instructors that are able to work and pick up those shifts, then we will be able to offer, an expansive Learn to Swim program, which is certainly our goal.
Okay. So I'll have another question on libraries. And hopefully I'm sticking to topic here, but
That's under this one.
library hours, we've got this beautiful library in Transcona, and I encourage people to come to Transcona, but the hours not open on the weekend kind of thing. Like, have we looked at the hours to make sure it's fitting with the demands of the community, shifting, pre-pandemic to pandemic to post-pandemic, that it still is fitting for this location?
Our library services division recently did a canvas. We recently hired about 35 library shelvers. We are still completing vacancies with our staffing levels, but more specific to your question about the hours, changes to library hours can be made, but it's not just an operational change. We can add library hours if we have sufficient dollars and staffing to do so. In order to change library hours significantly, or to reduce any library hours on a more permanent basis, that is a lot more difficult. So we're certainly open if you have some suggestions of how you think that there might be the hours that would be better suited for your Transcona library. We certainly have, branches want to be open. They want 7 hours, seven days a week. We have staffing to do 7 days a week. So, if we had more staff and more dollars, then we would open. But if it's a matter of changing hours, like if we, don't want a Wednesday service and you want a Saturday service.
We're already closed Wednesday.
Okay. So that was a decision by a previous council many, probably decades ago, when there was some cuts made. So Wednesday hours is certainly, many branches are not open on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Understood. When was the last time, also again, speak specific to the Transcona Library, because it opened during this term of council. I believe it maintained the same hours as the old library downtown Transcona. So when was the last time that the hours of the library was reviewed to see if it was in keeping with the needs of the community?
I have to go back and speak with our library services. I have to say that I think our libraries, we usually have a kind of a set libraries for the, September through May, and then we have a summer schedule, June, July, and August. It has been fairly set, to my knowledge, for quite some time, but I can certainly look into that further.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up, Ms. Fernandes, on this. I recall in the 4-year budget process, library services and all of community services was asked to find, I don't call them savings, we're asked to find service cuts. And libraries had reduction in existing hours. So it's a two-part question. Number one is, I know we restored some of it through the budget working group and it came to council. But was there a review about for each library at that time as to where you might reduce hours?
Yeah, that was at the beginning of the 4-year budget process, right? The balanced budget. And yeah, we were provided with a number of what we could do in order to achieve a reduction in mill rate support. So as you're well aware, I mean, community services, we have people and we have facilities. So that is probably over 90% of our budget. So yes, in order to come up with that, which thankfully almost none of those options were approved or accepted by council. I believe, and I'd have to just double check, but I believe that one of the options that was approved was a reduction of like closure of libraries. Instead of at 9 o'clock, we closed at 8:30, or instead of 8:30, they close at 8.
Right.
I think that was one of the changes that was approved, but I'd have to just double check that.
Okay, and like Transcona is not open on the weekend. I think I don't usually visit libraries on the weekend, but I think the West K is closed on Saturdays and Sundays too, right?
I'd have to check out each of the schedule.
That's okay. You know what? I don't need that detail, but and I will await when the last time we looked at the neighborhood community expectations for library hours, when that was last analyzed, but I'm sure that kind of engagement or whatever hasn't happened since I've been here 2010. So might have been done around the Millennium Library, I think. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. But I'm really interested in the answer when we looked at what the community was really looking for in terms of hours. And yeah, everybody wants the library to be open 7 days a week and whatever.
Yeah. If I can add to that, there was the library strategic plan that was done quite a number of years ago, and so there was some engagement done at that time about library hours, and the response was they want more hours. Community wants more hours, and they want Wednesdays back, and they want Saturdays and Sundays.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
No, and the motion's already on the floor. So.
And the motion is already, so I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, on to item 8, consolidation of capital budgets and acceptance of grants.
I read through this report. This is for 2 different local ward initiatives, I think. Is that right, Ms. Fernandes? Or
Dave Domke's back here, Councillor, to speak to this one.
Oh yeah, these are parks, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like me to give a brief review, Councillor Chambers?
Please.
Really? Oh.
Okay.
You already know about it. Like what's all right. Okay.
Right.
Trying to get out of here.
Yeah, no, just a executive summary, please, Mr. Domke.
All right.
Sure. Very, very brief. This is a consolidation of capital budgets and acceptance of grants for 3 different projects. The one is Victor H.L. White Playground Structure and Replacement. It consolidates some prep funding in the ward, plus includes some funding from the Louis Riel School Division. The second one is the Bonneville baseball contribution to the St. Norbert ward. It's requesting that council approve a budget increase of $50,000, and that is it was used in the building of the hardball diamond at Highbury Park. Mm-hmm. And finally, $909.81 was a rubber grant from the Tired Stewardship Manitoba Incorporated for Cap Young park construction. And that was just added to the Parks and Rec Enhancement Project in order to help build that project. That's my quick consolidation report.
Okay, any questions?
Yep.
Councillor Nason?
Sorry. So it seems very interesting. So item 4, the $50,000 that we're accepting a grant from baseball, but an increase of $50,000 for prep. So that's 50,000 more that one ward is getting over and above what prep provides?
Well, we have to consolidate and add grants to the budgets on top of existing budgets. So we would add that to prep. So in that particular case, there would be an increase of the total project cost by $50,000.
Okay. It's not that there's a $50,000 increase to the prep program.
No, to the project.
But the scope of that project didn't change. The only thing that might have changed was that they wanted to plant some more trees along the property line of the adjacent homes as a natural kind of buffer to the ballpark.
Okay.
Is that your understanding, Mr. Domke?
You know, I don't know all the details to it, Councillor Chambers, but I do believe you since it's in your ward.
Yeah. So this is a project that Councillor Mays and I had worked on. So
Congratulations.
all right.
Good local initiative.
These kind of initiatives makes us pay attention to many important things in our lives that we must understand it carefully and not waste our time and efforts. So let's continue the next session.
I'll move the report on behalf of Councillor Chambers.
All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you, Mr. Domke. We have 2 addendum reports. One is the community incentive grant for the West End Biz Improvement Zone.
So first we'll need a suspension of the rules to consider the 3 addendum items.
I move a motion to suspend the rules to hear the 3, and I think they're all CIGP addendums.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And I don't know that these are local initiatives again.
Wow.
I don't know that I need a full, I read the reports, they were sent to us. So.
Well, there's only 2 that have reports. 9 and 10 have reports. Number 11 does not have a report.
Which one is that? What?
Number 11.
Number 11 is the Toba Center for Children and Youth.
Oh, right.
Did this come up from a community committee?
Yes,
believe
this is, previously there was one from
ACC.
the Assiniboia Community Committee that was approved by council to the Toba Center for Children and Youth. This is a new one. That initial one was funded from a different board. So this one is basically a repeat, but being funded from a separate board than from the first time.
Okay.
So there was a proper application, and this is not violating the maximum 250,000 criteria for a CIGP. Like in total, an organization is limited to a total of 250,000.
I believe Ms. Fernandes has more detail on the matter.
Okay, well, let's do the first.
Let's do
the first. Yeah. So I'm going to actually move report 9 for the. This is the West End Biz CIGP, which the councillor would like us to move forward. So I'm moving it forward.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And
number 10.
Councillor Nason, if you're okay, I'll just move this one as well.
Go ahead.
This is River Heights for Gary.
I will move report number 10, community incentive grant to City of Winnipeg.
$68,000.
Yeah, this comes from, I forgot which committee is this one?
This would be City Center.
City Center. Yeah. So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. On to number 11, and we'll get Ms. Fernandes to provide some background on this.
Well, I would like to be able to provide some background on this, but there has not been an actual CIGP application made, which is a bit problematic from an administrative perspective. So this is the one that I had raised at the last SPC, in that it's certainly up to your prerogative to waive criteria for the grant to be provided, but we can't necessarily circumvent the reimbursement. We still need an application. We still need information from the organization, because this is a reimbursement program. So, the approval and the waiver of the criteria is one thing, but with CIGPs, we don't just, cut a check to the organization. They have to do the work. They have to provide information. They need to provide plans. And so we don't yet have any of that information from the TOBA Center.
Right.
So
I'm going to ask you a question. Hang on.
No, before you ask.
I want to talk about
if we could lay this over.
No,
that information.
Well, no, we might amend it. Hang on. Please hear me out, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I've had 12 years experience. All right. Ms. Fernandes, I think in the past, you won't recall any, but in the past, maybe our clerk, but in the past, I've seen CIGP requests go higher stages than community committee without a report, but there's always attached to that is that it's subject to TOBA Center completing an application before and processing before any monies would be distributed. Am I right on that, Mr. Clerk or Ms. Fernandes?
Typically, yes. There have been instances in the past where community committees have basically done a pre-approval of a community incentive grant, subject to a bunch of conditions such as submitting an application, positive report coming back from the administration, and then that would go back to the community committee for final approval. However, this is somewhat different in that it is a recommendation up to council to essentially just waive all criteria.
Right.
But this seems kind of carte blanche.
Essentially just waive all criteria.
Right.
But this seems kind of carte blanche in the sense that we don't have information with respect to the project itself.
Well, we know what the project is. They're building that new facility over in Assiniboine Park.
Renovating.
Yeah.
Renovating a building that they're going to occupy there. Yeah.
But in terms of the waiving of the criteria, I mean, why is it being waived? Though there's additional details that should be provided that we don't have in terms of making a decision.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to bring something else to our attention, and we'll probably lay it over, but and I'll just confirm this with Ms. Fernandes, just so the public service can express it. But so the CIGP program is unfunded for 2023.
Correct.
And as it is unfunded, I do believe, the funding source is actually the amount of money that pays the administrator of this program. And without any money in it, if this thing gets delayed, who would be actually processing the CIGP application, given that the program hasn't been funded by council?
Excellent question. So we have raised this as well, because you are correct that the CIGP program that has been in existence for decades, we do recover one community development worker to process all of those, the CIGP applications, and work with the organizations. So as you probably are also aware, even when the application comes in, by the time that the work is done, by the time that the organization provides the information back to the administration, that we require, and then we reimburse, because it's a reimbursement program, right? It's not an approve and then we release a grant. They have to do the work, submit the paperwork, provide the inspections and all of that needs to be done, and then we reimburse. One CIGP could take multiple years to be completed. So even though there's no funding for the CIGP program beyond 2022, the work of the CIGP program will continue for at least a year or two, if not longer.
Well, yeah, there's certain wards that have some pretty sizable balances still available to award, right? So anyway, I just wanted to get an idea on that. And my other question would be, has community services been officially internally requested to try to make sure that position is filled for dealing with all the work that's to come in 2023 and beyond?
Let's just say we don't, if there's no funding for that person, we currently do not have funding for that position moving forward. So we brought that up as a budget risk. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway.
Councillor Nason?
Just on the community incentive grant program, just to confirm, funding for that is external debt, correct? That's the source. We take on debt for this program?
You know what? I honestly don't know. I'd have to look at the capital sheet to see. In prior years, it used to be a cash to capital, but I think that in more recent years, it might have changed the funding source.
Page 21 of the capital projects book for 2020.
Okay.
Yeah, when we got into this 4-year budget, but prior to that, it was always cash to capital.
Okay.
Yeah. Like since I haven't been around that long. Since 2010 to up to the 4-year budget, CIGP was cash to capital.
Okay. Perhaps if we do lay it over, the mover of it at community committee can come speak to it. Perhaps provide the additional information we need.
So, Mr. Clerk, if we do move this to layover, recognizing that any potential delays could have an impact on this project, can we lay it over to a special meeting in July as opposed to waiting till September or
why would we have a special meeting for this?
Or November? In the sense that, again, I don't want to delay any construction if this layover would have that type of impact. So if we lay it over to a special meeting, is that?
I would argue, Mr. Chair, that if this was so critical to the undertaking, then the mover and the applicant or the recipient should have been here to speak to the item today.
Can I just say, I have a CIGP urgent thing to deal with, and I was unable to get an application completed, even for a special meeting. And I have to say, I'm having to live with September 1st Community Committee and September 6th PCSP in that circumstance. And it is an urgent need for cash. I would suggest that the layover would be till September 6th. Just because of the way,
Okay, Cindy, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say, though, that unfortunately, precedent perhaps has been set, but not necessarily that we were necessarily in agreement with. But this SPC and EPC and Council did approve a somewhat similar motion that was provided by Councillor Klein, where it circumvented the process on this exact same project. And so that's why I had said at a previous meeting, I did identify that we had not received an application. So this is a continuation of a request, that Councillor Klein had made and that Council has already approved, but we're still awaiting on the application from the organization because we still don't have the authority to release a grant. It's still all subject to the rules of the CIGP process. It's the waiver of the criteria that that council has approved, similar to the other two that you guys just approved. The difference being that those two, the administrations reviewed the application and had mentioned in the report that it's not meeting criteria. And then it's up to you guys to decide if you want to waive the criteria, right? In this case, there's no application.
But there was no
At least there was
precedent.
an application in the other ones that provided clarity and transparency around the scope of the project, wasn't there? Like
There was no application for that one either.
Yeah, can I just say, okay.
Now, sorry, what meeting was that at? Sorry, Mr. Councilor.
The motion that Cindy is
Referring
to was approved by council on April 28th of 2022.
But that one still required an application to be submitted for the money. Is that not correct, Ms. Fernandes?
They had not provided the application at that time either.
This is the Toba Center, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So they have to provide an application in order for it to go.
Correct.
So we can vote this to go forward, but what's that going to do when there's no official application in there?
So is the waiving of the criteria include no application?
No,
Oh, okay, so
No, it's item 2 on the,
there is no criteria that this is the financial processing of recovery. Ms. Fernandes explained the program, like you have to submit the paid bills.
I went and I've looked on the April 11th of this committee where we approved it for it's the exact same motion.
Well, let's do it. Let's move it.
It's the exact same motion.
I don't care.
Guys.
Okay. I don't care. I'll move it. It doesn't matter. They're not going to get any money unless there's an application.
It'll go to
I'll move it.
EPC and
All right.
council.
I'll move it.
okay, go ahead, Councillor Edie.
I'm just moving the request of this is coming from the community committee though. Right?
Yes.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation of the community committee that this go on to EPC and they can discuss the lack of an application and they're not going to get the money even though they say they're given the money.
Okay.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And just to conclude on this though, I mean, I've moved one before, but I made it clear in the request that an application, it's subject to the money being released by application. To make it clear to the organization, there's no money unless you file an application. Okay? I just want to say that. Those have happened since I've been on since 2010, okay? So I've seen the last April one wasn't a precedence. There have been others that have gone, but it said subject to.
Yeah, I think the language is just a little lacking.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can we get somebody to move?
I'll move adjournment.
Sorry,
you,
Councillor, did you call the question on?
Yeah, we said yes.
Sorry.
Councillor Nason moves adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. We stand adjourned.
We have reached the end of this coverage of Winnipeg City Hall. Personally, this session were very useful and informative, so we need to welcome the summer with greater protection. I want to say thank you to everyone who contributed to this useful conversation. Also, for you guys, I hope this episode was useful to you as well. If so, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see our upcoming episodes.